Did you ever spend time with the guy? Did you ever meet Diddy?
I've met him before, yeah.
How was he?
Very nice guy, very smart, super business. I mean, he's very successful.
No, I get it. So you see some guys struggling with that. You see Bieber struggling with that. You see some of these guys struggling with that.
They can't get it out of their head. They can't get it out of their head.
Before his death, Gene Deal didn't just talk, he warned, and his warnings weren't about Diddy's infamous freak-off nights or the hundreds of bottles of oil the feds displayed in their evidence photos. He was hinting at something older, darker, and far stranger. In his interviews, Gene spoke of hidden rooms beneath Los Angeles mansions, of whispered rituals that made Diddy's wildest parties seem tame, and of an unspoken pact among Hollywood's most untouchable figures to keep certain doors both literal and symbolic locked forever. Now Gene Deal is gone, and the timing is far too suspicious to ignore. All we have left are his scattered clues. Breadcrumbs leading toward a side of the industry we were never...
The question is he a criminal? Is he basically akin to a mob boss running several criminal enterprises? And while it's very clear to me he is a depraved, disgusting person, we have to prove that he violated.
Gene always said the real stories weren't on the red carpets or in the velvet-troped VIP booths. They were hidden far below, in places no paparazzi could ever reach. He spoke of corridors carved beneath some of Los Angeles' most famous estates, passageways absent from every public record, while the public laughed off rumors of the Playboy Mansion's secret tunnels as nothing more than an April Fool's stunt. Gene swore they were no joke. He pointed to those 1970s blueprints, the ones that supposedly mapped a route running under the golf course beneath Sunset Boulevard, all the way to the homes of actors whose names still light up box offices. According to him, those plans weren't just real. They led to more than wine cellars or private lounges. Some ended in chambers with locks on both sides. For decades, the whispers were dismissed, even when Playboy's own site published photos from a massive 1977 excavation project. The only official word was silenced. Hugh Hefner himself refused to comment. But Gene spoke like a man who had been there. He described walls layered with soundproofing older than most of today's Hollywood elite, and rooms laced with the scent of incense and iron. He said they weren't for movie shoots, at least. Not officially, though. Cameras were involved. Whatever took place in those hidden spaces was meant to stay invisible, and the few invited to witness.
And what's really going to be interesting is the parade of celebrities who we expect to be mentioned and or called into that courtroom. People who we hadn't heard about prior, like Mike Myers, Austin Powers, Mike Myers. Why is he getting called? Why is he on the witness list? That'll be fascinating. And then, of course, there are the no-name, quote unquote, women who are going to have to find every ounce of courage they have.
I'm not trying to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but we seriously need to look into how this man passed away. Honestly, black folks don't usually drown unless they're somewhere like Lake Vanilla. This just doesn't sit right with me. He was doing too many positive things in such negative times. He was our last shining hope. And to hear that he passed like this, something about it feels off. Malcolm Jamal Warner was more than just a celebrity. He was a revolutionary. His very name carried power. Malcolm Jamal. He had the spirit to rise up and possibly become the next...
I don't know this, but it just seems very suspicious when you go through and you look at in the history of different people that can make you go away if you listen, I've worried about some of the things that I talk about on my show.
It's easy to dismiss all of this as just another internet-born urban legend, like that so-called Michael Jackson Playboy Diddy tunnel triangle theory that went viral months ago. That one was debunked almost instantly. Users traced a screenshot back to a fake news post, but the debunking never explained why the idea caught on in the first place. Because in Los Angeles, we already know private estates have held fireworks licenses, exotic animal permits, and architectural features no realtor would ever dare list. And behind closed doors, some of the city's most seasoned insiders quietly confirmed that an underground network did exist. They just won't say what it was for. If Gene's hints are to be believed, that silence isn't just about discretion, it's about protection. In Hollywood, we've all seen what happens to people who break that protection. Lawsuits appear. Buried scandals resurface. Careers crumble overnight. For Gene, the risk was bigger than losing work. He had already crossed the invisible line, openly naming some of the most powerful figures tied to Diddy, accusing them of exploiting moments when families were at their weakest. In the same breath, he described corridors sealed in '89 and staircases.
To not be involved with a famous singer, to not come out, here's the price. And that they're just selling to the individuals that are in those. This is what I heard. They're selling those videos. So if you're Tommy X. And Tommy X is a big, big movie star. And he was at some of the Diddy parties. He was in one of those bedrooms with 3 other men, and he's happily married to a woman. And blah. Tommy doesn't want that video to come out.
Even without a verified map, the fragments form a larger and far more unsettling picture. The rumored tunnels of Holmby Hills were said to link for Alistair's directly to the mansion. If those blueprints were real, a person could step out of a private bedroom and into an underground chamber without ever being seen in public. NF Gene was telling the truth. Those chambers weren't casual lounges, they were stages for rituals no one would dare film, unless the footage was meant to be used as leverage. Which is why the whispers about a missing surveillance tape start to sound less like tabloid.
To me as Wild King Nights. And what a Wild King Night was when him and a guest would go to a hotel room or be at his home, his bedroom, and they would have intimate gatherings. I would have to go and prep that hotel room, which consisted of baby oil, astroglide.
When federal agents raided Diddy's homes in Los Angeles and Miami, the inventory they released was written in the kind of bland, careful language that makes you wonder what they weren't saying. Alongside the crates of oil and various props, some sources claim agents logged digital media files, now locked away tighter than any sealed indictment. If even a fraction of Gene's account is true, those files could be the smoking gun linking today's so-called freak-off culture to something older and far more difficult to prosecute. Which raises the question, in a city built on illusions, how deep does the real story go? And when you step back, the most chilling part isn't just what Gene described, it's what happened after. He's not the only one who pulled back the velvet curtain to glimpse the machinery running behind Hollywood's perfect smile. Over the years, there have been assistants who kept schedules no one else was allowed to see. Security men who guarded more than just gates. Stylists who noticed bruises makeup couldn't completely hide. Too many of them have vanished without explanation. Sometimes the news blames a sudden illness, sometimes a freak accident, and sometimes there's no announcement at all. It's been called coincidence. But when the list of the missing keeps getting longer, you have to ask who's crossing off the names.
Are you surprised by the evidence that's already coming out in the criminal trial?
No, I'm not surprised. I experienced some of those things. Witness violence.
That's what makes Gene's fate hit so hard. He'd been in the game long enough to know the unspoken rules. You don't say certain names, you don't describe certain rooms, and you never put certain details on record. But Gene broke every one of those rules, and within weeks, online sleuths were already drawing unsettling parallels between his story and the untimely ends of other whistleblowers. The timing leaves one question hanging in the air: how far would the system go to protect its shadows? What Gene hinted at were not the champagne and confetti cliches people imagine when they think of celebrity excess. According to sources we've spoken with, these were meticulously choreographed performances where every object in the room carried meaning, and every step followed a script handed down for decades. They took place in windowless chambers designed to disorient lighting that warped the sense of time, music that blurred focus, a collision of symbols from traditions never meant to meet. In those moments, the power dynamic wasn't just visible, was the point. The few who controlled the room made sure the many understood the cost of entry.
Understand the cost of entry.
Will you help me? I want to hear your music, so I come over there and I play the music. And he's sitting there, just looking at me, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to you. That's what my assistant said. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I get it. So now no more communication.
It's easy to doubt these accounts and skill. You notice how many high-profile figures are rumored to have passed through these spaces. They never arrive through the front entrance. They never leave in the same car they came in. There are protocols, handlers, even decoys, all designed to keep the public version of their nights spotless. And if any of them ever considered speaking out, they'd have to weigh that impulse against the threat of footage, said to be locked away footage that, in the wrong hands, could dismantle careers, fortunes, and families. This is why the missing surveillance tape rumor isn't just a taboo.
Let's talk about the filth that's starting to come out in the early days of the Diddy trial. This, of course, is P. Diddy. Surprise, surprise, he's a creep. Surprise, surprise, he's done horrible.
When you step back, the pattern is almost formulaic on leak surfaces. The source is sidelined, the material disappears, and the public narrative snaps back into place as if nothing happened. Those paying close attention, remember? The rest distracted by louder headlines and shorter memories. Gene's death broke that cycle. He carried just enough credibility and had just enough reach to make ignoring him impossible. Months later, his interviews are still being poured over frame by frame, with viewers dissecting every pause, every glance off camera. For those who have managed to walk away from the underground circles Gene warned about, survival comes with its own kind of sentence. They step back into daylight, carrying a weight that never really lifts, haunted not just by what they witnessed, but by the constant sense that someone is still watching. Many have fled to other states, living under assumed names, keeping their profiles buried. They speak in fragments, wrapping their memories in metaphor, as if saying too much might.
Don't trust nobody. In Hollywood specifically, when you get there, a lot of people don't know how to say no. That's the difference between New York City and California.
Memoirs from former insiders, when they surface, are rarely straightforward tell-alls. They're layered with coded language, conspicuous omissions, and abrupt shifts in narrative, almost as if the author is trying to purge their memories without triggering some invisible tripwire. Between the polished anecdotes, there are slips, casual mentions of special meetings, or after-hours contracts that hint at a deeper, hidden machinery. The subtext is obvious to those who know where to look, and it's often in those gaps in what's left unsaid that the most truthful fragments live. For readers who can read between the lines, these books don't feel like confessions at all. They feel like messages smuggled past the censors. Memoirs from former insiders, when they surface, are rarely straightforward tell-alls. They're layered with coded language, conspicuous omissions, and abrupt shifts in narrative, almost as if the author is trying to purge their memories without triggering some invisible tripwire between the polished anecdotes. There are slips, casual mentions of special meetings or after-hours contracts that hint at a deeper, hidden machinery. The subtext is obvious to those who know where to look, and it's often in those gaps.
You are literally, it's an unhealthy space, and so eventually you're going to go too far, you know? Who knows what happened to Philip? Who knows what he had to do in order to get to where he was at? There's a lot of things that people do that end up sitting and they can't get over it. And they gotta keep getting high, hoping to get it out of their head.
The paranoia isn't without cause. Several survivors recall being shadowed for weeks after cutting ties, spotting the same vehicles idling near their new homes, or answering anonymous calls that end the second they pick up. It's a form of psychological warfare, a constant reminder that the past is never truly past, even without direct threats. The steady drip of intimidation wears away at any sense of safety. It shows in the way they carry themselves, in guarded posture, clipped speech, and a reluctance to linger in public. Each small habit becomes a scar from a life lived under watch. Therapists who've worked with these individuals describe a familiar pattern: intense anxiety, recurring nightmares.
I'm sorry, I'm just like really, I'm in this moment right now. This is crazy. Sorry. People don't really know how much what it does to you when something that you love is taken from you and thrown away like it don't even matter, and then they move on with their lives and you're stuck. You're stuck during those years. You're still stuck 21 years later.
Instability only deepens the trauma. Many of these insiders walked away from lucrative positions and long-term contracts, abandoning not just the lifestyle, but the safety net that came with it. And in industries where references are everything, burning that bridge leaves no easy way back. Some take low-paying, anonymous jobs far beneath their former status, finding a strange comfort in work where no one knows their name. Others try to rebuild in entirely different fields, only to discover that the shadow of their past follows them through rumors, through online whispers, through the quiet but devastating reach of the industry blacklist. A few, however, have managed to channel their experiences into advocacy, joining discreet networks of whistleblowers who work behind the scenes to document and connect patterns of abuse. These networks function like underground resistance cells, communicating through encrypted channels, fully aware that a single breach could put everyone at risk. Within these hidden circles, Gene's name still carries weight, his warnings replayed and dissected as both a source of inspiration and a cautionary tale. For them, survival isn't just about escape, it's about bearing witness, no matter the cost.
You know, there's a short life in...
Why do you think that is with the creative side?
Well, because losing out money, you got to take... You're going through so much to...
The paranoia isn't without cause. Several survivors recall being shadowed for weeks after cutting ties, spotting the same vehicles idling near their new homes, or answering anonymous calls that end the second they pick up. It's a form of psychological warfare, a constant reminder that the past is never truly past, even without direct threats. The steady drip of intimidation wears away at any sense of safety. It shows in the way they carry themselves, in guarded posture, clipped speech, and a reluctance to linger in public. Each small habit becomes a scar from a life lived under watch. Therapists who've worked with these individuals describe a familiar pattern: intense anxiety, recurring nightmares, and an almost obsessive need to control their surroundings. Some avoid mirrors for months. Others can't sleep without the lights on. The rituals they once witnessed replay in their minds, like old film reels, and spooling without warning in the quietest hours. Some survivors try to outrun the memories with constant travel, never staying in one place long enough to grow roots. Others vanish into isolation, cutting off nearly all contact in the hope that obscurity might equal safety.
Sure, I don't buy for a minute that he's going to prison without getting out of here somewhere and stashing $2 billion or whatever. I think he has that kind of power, meaning Sean himself. But remember, it goes a lot deeper than that.
The cost is steep. Relationships crack under the pressure as partners and friends struggle to understand the constant vigilance, the guarded conversations, the unexplained absences. Trust becomes a rare commodity. Intimacy, a calculated risk. Survivors describe moments when they almost let their guard down, only for a headline, an unmarked envelope, or a passing face to slam the old fears back into place. It's a cycle that can last decades. Long after the world has moved on from the scandals that set it in motion, what's most telling is how these accounts align across people who've never met. Each describes the same initiation rituals, the same methods of control, the same tactics for disposing of someone once they became a liability. The overlap is too precise to dismiss as coincidence, giving weight to Gene's claim that what he saw was part of a larger, organized structure. These survivors may never name names, but together, their shared patterns form a mosaic that reveals far more than any single testimony could dot in the end. Their lives become a living archival record that proves the machine doesn't just consume people, it alters them forever. They may have escaped the rooms, the corridors, the hidden stages where power was performed like theater, but those places live on, replaying in their minds without consent. And while the rest of the world debates whether to believe Gene's accounts, the survivors don't have that luxury. For them, the truth isn't up for discussion. It's something
people I don't think realized was he had cameras all over the place, unbeknownst to them. And now he has all that footage, supposedly. This is what I'm told. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens if, you're a huge, iconic, TV star or movie star, and you're in some very, very...
And maybe that's the quiet victory. For all the power these networks wield to erase a person, they can't fully erase the ripples of what's been said. The real question is whether those ripples will one day gather into a wave strong enough to break the dam, or fade away like so many before them, swallowed back into the still surface of Hollywood's polished image. If Gene's story proves anything, it's that truth in this world doesn't just come at a price, it comes with a target. He walked straight into that danger and spoke anyway, leaving behind fragments of a picture we can't unsee. And now we're left staring into the dark, wondering, is this the part they couldn't bury? What's still hidden in the shadows? And who's next to disappear? Let us know your thoughts. Stay sharp. And until next time, keep your eyes open.